Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Sharpcast. My name is Josh, and joining me this evening we have Phil, who some will know as Boom Guy, and Paulo, the Mastodon. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello, thanks for having us.
Thank you for coming along and joining us. So, on tonight's discussion, we'll be going across a couple of key points. We'll be discussing the last Bisharp's event and looking at the difference in usage and seeing how this may affect the local metagame, but also how it's mirroring changes to the international metagame, as well as looking into a couple of Pokemon I want to focus on this month. One being Crobat, and something a little bit left field thanks to the Florida regionals lately, Mega Banette, and how you can use something a little bit not normal and still have effect with it. Then on top of that, we are doing a quick discussion on the Premier Challenges coming up, as well as the upcoming Regionals and Nationals for Australia. Now, Phil, you were the winner of our last Bisharp's event, and you used a bit of an interesting team, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I pretty much used the team I used in the February International Challenge. And I was planning to use a Mega Pidgeot team, but I ran out of time for that, so I thought I'll use this team since it was pretty decent. It did decent on the International Challenge, finishing 19-11. And yeah, and I always wanted to use Mega Ordino in a good way, but it was okay in the end. But it worked out for that tournament, which is good.
It worked out quite well for you indeed. I mean, you look at our top cut that we had for this month, and it's probably one of the more diverse lots I've seen as far as top cut teams go. I mean, yes, we've still got a decent representation of Mega Kangaskhan, but things are spread around a little bit. I mean, looking at the usage overall, Paulo, you were the only person using a Greninja at all on the day.
Yeah, that's Greninja hasn't seen as popular this season comparison to last year and all that sort of thing. So, oh no, it fit the bill for my team and did a fair bit of work. So it's still got its uses.
Like, do you think there's any reason why he's dropped down in usage? Because if I remember correctly, we actually had two of them last month. Which, we had two of them in February, so seeing it drop down, well, realistically by half, even though it's only 2-1, but it's still dropping down in usage quite a lot.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too sure, because I didn't use it last month.
It's one of those risky Pokemon to use, though, with a game full of speedy Pokemon and priority moves. It may come back. Someone may use it and see some good use out of it. But there's reasons why it's not popular at the moment as well.
Yeah.
Because it's defenses.
Yeah. Well, we say that, but we're seeing a rise of things like Mega Blaziken coming into the metagame now, which is something that, when you look at it on paper, you'd think, hang on, how's this going to handle the fact that you've got the likes of Mega Kangaskhan and Mega Charizard, which both have either good natural bulk or a somewhat decent defensive typing, especially considering the amount of fairies in the metagame with Sylveon being so prevalent.
Yeah, Mega Blaziken is pretty useful, not only for Sylveon, but it's for the most of the metagame, like Kangaskhan, Landorus, Amoonguss, Bisharp, even Thundurus as well. Sometimes if you want to hit it for damage, but it definitely not going to like the Thunder Wave. It does good damage, really good damage as a mixed attacker, so it's very versatile. I still don't understand why most of the Japanese use it as a Mega, but that's something I need to discover for myself on why they use that as a Mega instead of just a normal one.
Yeah, because you used normal Blaziken back in February.
Yeah, I still use that team as well. I just didn't want to use it in the March tournament for...
Normal Blaziken could, in my opinion, is more useful on most occasions. It doesn't take up a Mega slot, and you still got your speed boost, and you can give it an item to deal with, if you want to deal with status, you can give it a Lumberry. If you need to take a hit, you can give it a Sash. If you need more power, you can give it a Life Orb, which I think can out-damage Mega Blaziken. Like,
Yeah.
don't quote me on that. Like, I don't know, like,
I haven't found out the numbers myself. I think the main reason why people are using Mega Blaziken is probably the base speed is a much higher, so we'll be able to outspeed a lot of Choice Scar Pokemon in one speed boost.
as opposed to two. Yeah.
Yes, as opposed to normal Blaziken where it needs at least two.
Yeah, and especially considering that you're seeing a lot of Scarfers such as Landorus the Rain running around, and Landorus the Rain really likes to rain on Blaziken's parade.
Yeah, definitely. Well, my Blaziken in particular is faster than Adamant Landorus at least.
Yeah.
Which I think most Scarf Landoruses are.
Yeah, my star Adamant. If someone decides to go jolly, then they're just sacrificing a bit of power, which is not really wise for it to do.
Not necessarily wise, but considering that we're seeing a lot of variation going on with this metagame, I think the speed creep could catch somebody off guard, but probably not the best option for a best of 3 setup.
Yeah, probably, yeah. As once someone finds out, it's going to be a tough time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, looking at the usage, it's looking like the metagame's shifting a lot more towards bulk now, which is something that we had noticed, especially happening in the US regionals over the last month. But there's still a couple of real standout speed Pokemon, such as Weavar's making a bit of a comeback, coming back in as one of the premier fake-out users. But we're also seeing the return of old VGC 13 staples like Jellicent coming back into the metagame now.
Yeah, we had two Jellicents in our top 4, I believe.
Yeah, we had two in top 4, and we had 3 overall on the day. So it's not a bad showing for, I think, the first month that it's really had a showing locally.
Those Jellicent was inspired by an American player named Paul Chor, and he is a very good Trick Room setup for sure, and that Curse Body is a really nice ability to stop most Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean, it gives you the option of having a Disabler on the team without actually having to waste a turn or a slot to get it off. It might not work when you necessarily want it to, but it will interrupt the momentum that your opponent might necessarily have at that time.
Definitely does, yeah.
Now, speaking of the local scene, as I mentioned earlier, we do have our regionals coming up. Looking forward to an announcement in the coming weeks from Nintendo Australia and New Zealand with regards to dates and locations for those. But on the same day, it was dug up on the official website as well as on Facebook that the first Premier Challenge for Australia may be going ahead within the next 2 weeks.
Definitely, that's a very good sight to see, for sure, if that is still going on, and I'd love to see how many people would try to go to it.
The only worry that I've got, especially with this time frame, is that, well, A, we're getting extremely short notice on it by the sounds of it, which was an issue that we've had in previous years with regionals and nationals anyway. But especially for people that need to travel to this first one, being that it's in Mildura, so regional Victoria, for those of us in Queensland that don't know where it is, it's a little bit out of the way for going to gather points. I mean, even travelling to Singapore is a little bit more straightforward for those that are going to go to those extreme lengths for getting the championship points.
Yeah, it definitely is, and you need a bit of time to sort that out, and Mildura is not that bad for Australian players. Well, only if it's good if you're based in Adelaide or Melbourne.
Yeah.
Because it's more closer to Adelaide than Melbourne, actually. But yeah, for travelling to Asia, that's definitely need a lot of planning for sure. Or big events like nationals or regionals.
Yeah. The big thing that has me worried, though, is the fact that the time frame we're talking about here, because we're looking at, if it goes ahead, April 11th for the Mildura PC, but then we've also got, starting in April, the Melbourne Regionals, which could necessarily, but not realistically, be, say, the week after, or even the day after. Is this too big of a risk, you think, having the Premier Challenges and then the Regionals so close to each other, if the other states go ahead in the same sort of time frame?
Definitely is. I haven't even looked at that schedule. I wasn't aware there was going to be a talk of a regional in Melbourne on that time. But
Well, we still haven't got the exact dates. All we have is that regionals starting in April, which could be anywhere from the 4th of April to the end of April.
oh, okay. From that Nintendo post, I thought it was just an announcement in April. Actually, that's what I kind of took from that message, not a real event. But if that's the case, then yeah, that is short notice though to be told for that.
Well, if we look at it this way as an announcement of time, it does fit the time frame from last year, where I think it was the second last week of April. We had the was it Adelaide or Perth first last year? I think it was Adelaide.
It was Perth first last year. I remember the Adelaide regional was in Mother's Day. That's usually in May, I think.
Yeah, that would have been early May, because we were second week of May, I think, for us in Sydney, with Melbourne the week after.
Yeah.
So their announcement of starting in April, going into early May, it's a realistic time frame if we look at last year as an example.
Yeah, it's pretty much almost going to be the same as last year for sure.
Yeah. Which, I mean, if we are going to have Premier Challenges in April, it just feels like it's too cramped, too sudden, when you've got the opportunity to really space it out with doing, say, regionals in April, May. June's kind of that odd one in the centre, which you could fill with Premier Challenges before Nationals, realistically in July once more.
Yeah.
Definitely does, yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens, because this is the first year that Pokemon International Company has actually come into Australia and Southeast Asia in general for actually organising events. And it's interesting to see that it looks like the regionals and nationals are still actually being organised by Nintendo as opposed to the Pokemon Company.
Well, yeah, Nintendo owns all the tools, so not really the Pokemon Company, but if that's the case, then I'm fine with that at the moment.
Yeah.
I think it's probably organised with each other, because the Pokemon International Company did approach Nintendo for the last 2 years, so wouldn't surprise me if they're still working together this year.
Definitely not, especially considering that Nintendo Australia does actually have a fairly firm route into event organisation here. I mean, we were in the town hall in Melbourne for Nationals last year, and I can guarantee that that's not an easy venue to get into.
No. Definitely is not. That's why we appreciate them for hosting it there.
Definitely. So, as soon as we've got more news on that, I will post it to the Facebook page, but it will also go up on pages such as Pokemon Australia. So keep an eye out in the coming weeks for any sort of announcement coming up.
Or follow the Nintendo Australia Facebook, Twitter.
Yeah.
They would be the first, for sure.
Yeah, well, they'll announce it for us unless one of us has an inside source that somebody hasn't talked about yet, but hey, we'll see what happens. Now, we're going to break down a couple of different Pokemon this month just to give people a different idea on ways to look at the metagame. But we're not going to look at a lot of the real standard stuff, so we're not going to focus a lot on things like Kangaskhan or Landorus Tate. There's plenty of articles out there focusing on Pokemon like that and how they can integrate into a team. We're going to have a look at something that both myself and Paulo actually ran this month in the tournament for trying something different, and that being Crobat. Now, Crobat was a fairly big Pokemon back in VGC 13, which was a metagame that you were quite invested in, if I remember correctly, Phil.
Yeah, it definitely was invested in, but I never really saw Crobat that often, though. And just not until this year it's getting more usage.
Yeah, I mean... Sorry.
Even for the little bit that I played in VGC 13, I didn't see an awful lot of Crobat either. I only played for like a couple of months though, but even then.
Yeah, I didn't see it at the World Championships, so...
Which is interesting, because, I mean, VGC 13 was the first one that really allowed the use of Tailwind tactics. But I suppose VGC 13 was also quite lovingly referred to as the Weather Wars, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of deterred it off, and probably what's making it come back this year is for that reason, and probably the excess of Quick Guard as it got in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire now. That's one other reason to use it.
Yeah, quick guard is definitely a big thing because we've got so much priority happening in the metagame right now that you need something to curb it that little bit.
Another big thing Crobat got for a comparison to 2 years ago was it resists fairy typing, which is really handy against Sylveon because it loves to just spam Hyper Voice, and Crobat just
poison typing.
You sit there taking it for days.
Yeah, poison typing this gen has made it more useful.
Yeah.
At least on the defensive side, so to speak.
Yeah, well, I mean, Crobat's got fairly decent natural bulk as it is, so that you can get a good, decent investment out of it to live quite a few hits.
85-80-80 is by no means bad.
No, definitely is not bad at all.
And when you consider that outside of Rock Slide, which is, well, very common, Poison Flying's actually not too bad defensively overall as well. Because, I mean, not only are you resisting Fairy, but, I mean, immunity to ground. Admittedly, we haven't seen as much Earthquake this year as we have as we did last year, especially. It's really only Landorus that's carrying it. But
well, last year was Garchomp, so...
Yeah. And that thing was everywhere.
Yeah.
Whereas this year, Garchomp's fallen off the map because, realistically, it's a poor man's Landorus.
Yeah.
And plus, being weak to Fairy doesn't help its case.
No.
Because there's Sylveon that's up there now. Morwell can still pack a bit of a threat if you don't know how to deal with it and not expecting it in a matchup.
Yeah, but Morwell's kind of fallen to the wayside quite a bit.
Yeah.
It really has, yeah. Morwell has fallen on the wayside. I think Mega Camel's the big reason, in particular. You can't really use it in Trick Room because the Mega Camel's the...
Yeah, because the Mega Camel's still going to underspeed
Trick Room
you.
Pokemon now.
Yeah. Still going to underspeed you, and it's generally going to OHKO you with with an Earth Power.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Morwell can't even... I don't think Waller has any move to hit it back. So I don't think Sucker Punch is even to a KOing.
No. Definitely, definitely not on the bulk that Mega Camerupt has.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things that's really allowing Crobat to work quite well outside of Tailwind is the fact that, I mean, you look at its moveset and it's got such a great amount of utility that you can fill a gap on a team quite easily with it. Even if you're not running Tailwind, Super Fang's a great option because you don't have to put any investment into its damage whatsoever. And anything that's a 2-hit KO instantly becomes an OHKO for its partner.
Yep, and thanks to its speed, it definitely sets up for the partner Pokemon.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I was just going to back up on, the variety of moves that it does have. Quick Guard can just block off things that are going to, pick it off. It's got Taunt to shut down Trick Room users without Mental Herb. It's got an awful lot going for it.
The ability in a focus is bloody fantastic.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you've got so many fake-out users coming out into the metagame. I mean, obviously you've got the staple, the staple of Kangaskhan, been around doing that job from VGC 14. You've got Weavile now starting to come back into the metagame, causing things. Mineshower's still around a little bit, not as much representation as has been seen previously, but pops its head up every now and then.
Yeah, and then you got the old Ludicolo in Rain.
Yeah. Rain teams having definitely kind of petered out a little bit. I've noticed at least.
Yeah, definitely have this year. Being back to Crobat, Crobat has that versatility for sure.
There's even handy ones on Trick Room teams for fake out as well, like Harayama is an example that can fake out while its partner sets up Trick Room.
Yeah.
There's Scrafty, even though I don't think that thing's used because of its typing.
Well, not
in Sylveon.
Well, Scrafty's still seen a little bit, but it has to be in a reasonably specific setup. But we will be covering Scrafty a little bit later on. But the other thing with Crobat is that you can give it a bit of oomph to the team if you need it as well. I mean, you've got Brave Bird. If you want, you can run Poison Fang just for trying to get rid of Sylveon, take advantage of that resist and the super effective stab. If you really want to be silly, you can run Confuse Ray.
Definitely, that would work, yes.
Yes.
Confuse Ray's even an option if you've only got 3 moves and you just want a 4th. I mean, there's nothing wrong with hacks. Swag is there as well.
Yeah.
Confuse Ray's a safer option for 100%, and for the physical Pokemon.
Yeah. I mean, you can even use it for shutting down specific targets now that it's got access to Confide. especially heavy hitters like Sylveon again. Instead of trying to kill it, you can just neuter it, essentially.
Yep, it has that versatile to do anything it wants. It's definitely useful for that.
I think it's one that it's probably going to remain a niche Pokemon. I'm a big fan of Crobat personally. I don't think it'll see heavy usage overall, but it's definitely something to be wary of when you're building into VGC 15 and something that may crop up and rain on your day if you're not ready for it.
Yeah, you just got to be aware what it does, and it's only got one usage at the moment, but it's going to be probably the same. Like most people would use it for a Tailwind Super Fang. I'd expect that on every Crobat.
Yeah.
You might Brave Bird as well for the stab attack, and and the fourth attack could be anything.
It could.
Yeah, mine that I ran was those 3 attacks and Taunt.
Yeah.
Whereas I ran something a little bit different using Super Fang, Taunt, Roost, and Tailwind.
Yeah. Well, what did you find with Roost in particular?
Roost,
that's an interesting choice.
Roost,
Longevity.
A lot of people would only go for the single hit on Crobat, not expecting it to be as bulky as it is, and especially with the Tailwind up, being able to get that Roost off nice and early means that you're able to get at least another Super Fang off to really mess with somebody's day, or even just be a nuisance by sticking around. I mean, not having to double switch because only one Pokemon gets KO'd, it's a little bit stronger than you would think. Admittedly, doesn't put too much pressure in if you can get the Taunt off on it, but Mental Herb is there for that reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I opted against that going for Brave Bird, because a lot of people who ended up doing pretty well against the strat targeted everything except Crobat. And then they'd leave Crobat in a 2-on-1 situation where Crobat couldn't really do anything.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, the big thing that's going to mess up Crobat, especially if you are running a non-Brave Bird variety, is going to be things like Gengar and Mega Gengar. But if they are running Mega Gengar, you've at least got that taunt that you can shut down the Perish Trap before they can get it going.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it depends on the Mega Gengar and Crobat are the same speed, so yeah, depending.
Yeah, it will depend on spreads.
Yeah, and considering that most Gengars are running quite heavily invested into speed, yeah, it's not something to rely on, but something that you can do.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that aren't common in the meta, one of the things I really wanted to discuss is I was really interested looking at the Florida Regionals and Wolf Glick's team building around Mega Banette. Mega Banette was something that when it was revealed, people thought, okay, this is a cool concept, but it's not going to work too well because its niche is Prankster Destiny Bond, as it's seen. But Wolf managed to build a very, very successful team around actually stalling out with Mega Banette and just wearing down through burn damage. Have either of you had the chance to really have a look at this team and see what it can do?
Yeah, definitely have seen it. I've even played against someone using it that copied it. And it is a pain to deal with because, all the EVs are in bulk. There's no need for attack. It definitely has good recovery, and you got to double think every time before it uses Disable on you as well.
Yeah.
That's another niche. He's the only prankster Pokemon that has Disable. So that's why he chose Mega Banette in the first place, because he wanted to shut down the Landorus and some other Pokemon too.
A bunch of choice users in general, in particular choice scarf users, because a lot of them will just be going in for those fast hits, and if you shut them down after one hit, especially if you're going for a double protect the turn before that, so it doesn't even do anything, it's just forcing a switch.
Yeah, especially with a lot of common choice users like Landorus, like you said, Phil, and Sylveon as well, who quite commonly runs choice specs. I also think that the Frisk before the Mega Evolution also comes into play, because it gives you an idea of what your opponent's going to do with half of the team they've chosen for that particular battle, and that kind of information is so important.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's pretty much him and Dusclops are the best Frisk users.
Yeah.
In the metagame at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, having a look at this team, it's a really interesting team on paper, because you've got Mega Banette as obviously the key Pokemon to the team, but he's got Mega Venusaur as the backup for when people know what Banette does and play around it. Rotom Wash for that natural bulk. Landorus T for the Intimidate. Heatran for a great defensive typing, as well as being a good, strong special attacker. And Scrafty coming in as well for a second Intimidator. A big risk, especially considering how prevalent Bisharp has been in the metagame.
But he had that well covered. Let's face it, like, he's got Rotom Wash for Will-O-Wisp.
Yep.
And Rotom Wash is faster than Bisharp. And obviously the Mega Bayonet as well. So I felt he had every physical Pokemon covered so well with that team.
Definitely. I mean, there's a lot of good synergy with it. The double Intimidate plus the double Will-O-Wisp means any physical attack is essentially being shut down. Anything that's going to come and bring a strong special attack against it, you've got that disable for once you've scattered it out. Heatran will eat most of them for breakfast. And even if you want to play something a little bit silly, I mean, you've got Prankster Will-O-Wisp and Flashfire.
Yeah, you can definitely have to do that too.
That will put out a lot of hurt for people that are not expecting that to come out. But Mega Venusaur rounds it out well, just being a natural sponge, essentially, with the amount of damage that it can take.
And for those who are unaware, like, Wolfie did use Mega Bayonet in the tournament 2 weeks before that Florida tournament as well, but he used Mega Kangaskhan instead of the Mega Venusaur, and unfortunately lost to Angel Miranda with using the Clefairy Kangaskhan combo back then.
Do you think that part of the reason why he would have switched to Venusaur for that team would have been to help cover that fairy weakness, despite having Heatran?
Possibly, and the rain too.
Yeah, no, very effective at kind of just sitting in the rain. Thick Fat being a great defensive type, because most water types are going to have to try and use an ice type attack against it, and it's just going to shrug it off. But do you feel that it's a gimmick that's only really going to work once? Something that most people are going to clue onto quite quickly and shut it down effectively?
Yeah, I mean, one way to shut it down, in my head, is using Clefable with Bisharp, so you don't get Will-O-Wisps.
Yeah.
At all. And you can make use of the Intimidates that way. So that's one way of shutting it down, if anyone sees this combo coming. And yeah, you better have a good redirector with a Bisharp, at least.
Yeah, and redirection's something that had kind of fallen out in the early metagame, and it's just starting to come back in, especially with the Violite Friendguard Clefairy coming out of nowhere.
No, yeah, that idea was... We saw that coming a long time ago. A lot of the Americans were talking about it, and it finally shined in the regional where Wolfie lost to that in Virginia. So that started there, and then Dave Mancuso actually finished runner-up to Wolfie with the Clefairy as well.
Yeah, using the exact same thing that Angel Miranda did, using the Mega Kangaskhan Clefairy combo.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see how many other people use something like field like that. I mean, you yourself, again, using Mega Rodino in March, and it's not the first time that you've used a Mega Rodino in a competition either.
No, I started Mega Ordino in the season because I decided I wanted to try that one the most when the new Megas got announced. Because it's just not your typical Mega. I mean, your typical Mega is full of power, majority of them. And this one didn't get much of a power boost. It got a bulk boost and a type change. And I thought I was going to give it a try and see how it works in this kind of metagame. And unfortunately, what I found is it just, in the beginning, I used it with Trick Room and Calm Mind and Draining Kiss and one other attacking move. But I just found it was getting outclassed by Thundurus quite quickly.
Yeah.
And then when I went to the March, when I came back to it in the February, I just realized I'd rather make it more offensive, making it defensive Mega. But it has good bulk, so I don't really need Protect for Mega Ordino. But even in the tournament, I still struggle to bring it. I didn't bring it every time either.
Out of the 3 times I played you, I don't think I saw it once.
Exactly. I did not see a good use for you. It was like I had Draining Kiss because it's a good way to heal and attack. Hyper Beam, might as well use the strongest normal attack, and just in case I don't face any fire types. And then I chose Fire Blast for some steel Pokemon like Ferrothorn or
the value.
Yeah, and Cavalier and all that.
Yeah. I mean, it's very hard kind of dedicating your Mega slot to a support Pokemon, considering that the Mega brings such a good boost to a lot of the common Megas. I mean, especially like the likes of Mega Metagross and Mega Salamence, that it's really hard to justify something defensive that's not Mega Venusaur.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't have enough power, unlike Mega Venusaur as well. So that's the big problem. And that's why I wanted to use Calm Mind for it. But most of the common Pokemon had it covered. Like, you see a Steel type everywhere, and Mega Ordino can't really handle Steels really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's part of the reason why we haven't seen things like Mega Sableye as well, but despite the fact that it gets OHKO'd by Sylveon no matter what it does.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There's a few other Megas that we haven't seen as much, as like Sharpedo's another one. I don't think it really got a good benefit out of the Mega Evolution.
No, I mean, you're having to spend that turn at least to get that speed boost off so that you can try and do things. But if you're facing down something like a Mega Salamence, your turn's protecting for speed boost, which is such an obvious play. They're going to Dragon Dance and they're going to outspeed you anyway, so they don't really care.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that we've seen so little of Mega Gallade. I mean, when I saw Mega Gallade come up on paper, I was thinking, okay, this thing's a Kangaskhan counter. And where is it? So many Kangaskhan, where's the counter?
I don't know. I have not looked into it myself. I haven't spoken to anyone that's used it at all. General consensus, people think it's pretty bad. And I still don't know why, though. I guess Psychic and Fighting maybe not be the best offensive typing, I guess. I'm still not exactly sure. I haven't tried it out myself, so...
On the other hand,
don't quite me on it.
Very well
still playable, in a way. Yeah.
I mean, it does bring advantage. I mean, he gets Fake Out if memory serves me right?
No.
No? Nope. Okay.
No.
Yep.
No, because I did train one, and I haven't really found much of a use to it that I could fill with something else.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
I think part of it is the fact that Psychic is fairly weak at the moment as far as a stab move goes. There's not a lot that really needs to fear a Psychic hit.
Yeah, it's like Mega Medicham. I mean, we've already got a Fighting Psychic Mega already. And he's not getting used much either, so...
It'll be interesting to see what happens with a lot of things, because, I mean, the primary fairies being used at the moment are shuffling around a little bit, in the fact that you are either seeing people bringing a Sylveon, bringing a Mawile, or bringing either a Clefairy or a Clefable. And it's almost guaranteed that in most kind of top cut teams, you're generally going to see one of those three.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll see a fairy for sure.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what's going to come out from the regionals in America, the nationals in America rather, coming up, as well as seeing what the Japanese are using with their online competition coming up, because the Japanese have traditionally used some pretty crazy stuff.
They do, yeah. Majority of their tournaments are all best of one, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So most of the Japanese players have to get creative to outsmart each other and try not to play the norm. I did see one recently, but I've forgotten what it had in particular. I have to find that video.
That's all good. Well, I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what Zacian Park's going to bring to Worlds this year. Pachirisu last year out of nowhere, everybody started copying it. He needs a new trick now.
Yeah, it would be interesting for him. Like, I don't know if he will show up in Korean Nationals, so it's pretty much his team's going to be really hidden until Worlds.
Yeah.
Because we kind of saw that Mega Gyarados coming, because he has been using it for a while and just did a small adjustment. So this time he entered the International Challenge, but he used a pledge team for the fun of it, because as we all knew, that tournament did not offer any championship points.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we don't know what to expect out of him this year. It will be very last minute.
Definitely. Yeah, don't want anything quite as crazy as a Rotom fan like we saw at the Australian National Champions, or the
wasn't even holding a balloon.
No, it wasn't even holding the air balloon. Or the Solar Power Hyper Beam Heliolisk. Shout out to Dane O'Meara for making top 8 at Worlds, though. Great showing.
Definitely, yeah.
So good.
So, now that we're seeing that we're coming into a bit more of a defensive metagame, do you have any kind of idea of what you may see coming through as far as big shifts going? Well, besides Kangaskhan staying around.
Castelia is making a comeback. It hasn't started well
that's
this
what
year.
I was going to say too.
Yeah, it hasn't started well this year. It's now in the top 12 of the global link usage.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it's taken until now for people to even find Crescent Isle, but let's be honest.
That could be one factor, yes.
Yeah,
another factor is making what use can it do, and majority of them so far have gone with the Moonlight setup with Charizard Y and Calm Mind as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's pretty much 3 main variants of Cresselia hanging around. You've got the Calm Mind, you've got the helping hand, and you've got Trick Room.
Yeah, you just don't know what may come out. It depends on the team, obviously. You can kind of tell which teams are Trick Rooms and which ones are not.
That's why it's always good to have at least one Trick Room counter hanging around on your team.
Yeah.
Just so that you can rain on their parade a little bit.
Yeah. I've even seen some Cresselias carry skill swap because they've got my Mega Kangaskhan off on before, which puts you in a bit of a rough spot if you're running a Mega Kangaskhan and your parental bond gets taken away.
Well, even something like something left field with Trace coming in and tracing parental bond. If you're not prepared for dealing with that, it's going to cause issues.
Because skill swap with something like Cress can just take away like so much of like the common threats. Like it takes away Prankster from Thunderous, it takes away Pixelate from Sylveon, Galewing from Talonflame, like Flashfire from Heatran. Like
people use the Heatran, give the Heatran the Levitate. So
yeah, that is true. Actually,
that used to be an old thing and could kind of happen today.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens, because Heatran's one of the few legendaries that kind of sees mixed usage, but it always seems to be fairly similar. It's tending to be fairly bulky at the moment.
It is. It's actually getting back into popularity now. It's pretty much shutting down every Charizard Y, because no Charizard Y can handle it, unless in some Charizard Y. Some people are trying to get smart with their Charizard Ys now. They might try to put in the sneaky Hidden Power Ground or the Focus Blast.
Oh, don't get me started on Focus Miss. There's a reason that my Mega Sceptile does not touch that move anymore. But do you think that Heatran coming up is part of the reason that we've got Terrakion really making a strong comeback now?
I want to say yes and no.
Yes and no, because I thought the reason people were using Terrakion because of Kangaskhan and who else was it? Charizard.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. The Stab Rock Slide will, of course, deal with anything that's not over.
It outpaces both and can OHKO both with each with its respective stat move.
Yeah, a lot of us were waiting for Terrakion's comeback because rock fighting he's the only rock fighter out there and definitely has good resistance and offense and defensive typing.
It gets some neat attacks as well. Like it I'm pretty sure it gets quick guard as well now.
Yeah, it does.
That's always handy to have.
The best thing about Terrakion as a Musketeer, because he's the only one that knows Rock Slide. Cabalion and Virizion can't learn Rock Slide.
Yeah, they have to rely on Stonehenge if they're running a Rock-type move.
Yeah, and it's also the fact that it gets Stab on top of being the only one of the three that has access to Rock Slide, which is a huge thing. Plus flinch chances. As much as people hate hacks, it's there. Deal with it.
Yeah.
Plus boosting its attack and dropping its special attack without having to worry about a defense loss is also really nice. Whereas Virizion can lose like defense, but gets more special defense.
Yeah.
I feel that is generally pretty competent.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the three Musketeers, because I know that Virizion and Cabalion are starting to see a bit more usage now, just because, Cabalion's got a fairly decent defensive typing in Steel and Fighting, and of course Virizion is really good at shutting down rain teams by taking out Politoed, Kingdra, and Ludicolo reasonably easily.
Yeah, definitely has the best special defense bulk for that.
But we can only wait and see what's going to happen in the coming months as far as the metagame shifts, as we come towards not only our nationals, but we've just had confirmation as well that Southeast Asia is getting its own nationals coming up sometime reasonably soon. We've got the nationals in the US to look forward to, and of course, Worlds coming up in August.
And in the European circuit, there's more regionals in the European circuit as well, so the next one will be in Birmingham. That will be coming up. It's happening all over the place. It's definitely bigger this year than last year, for sure.
It's great to see it growing, and we can only hope that it's going to get even bigger.
Yeah.
So, I don't have anything left to say unless either of you two have something you'd like to bring up.
I'll be just letting everyone know I'll be hosting an Easter extravaganza for the Australian Asia time zone. I'll be hosting a massive VGC tournament over 2 days during the Easter weekend. So look out for that. It will be a massive online tournament, and definitely want to attract anyone from overseas to play it. And look out for the details on Pokemon Australia.
And I will repost it up onto the Bisharp's page as well for anybody else that misses it there. Paulo, have you got anything that you'd like to mention?
Not really, to be completely honest.
That's all good then.
Until now.
Well, Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope that you've enjoyed this. If you have anything that you'd like us to talk about when we do a future episode, please let us know. We're more than happy to answer questions and discuss things that you guys want to hear. So until next time, this is Josh signing off with Phil and Paulo.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.